everyone, and welcome to the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities. I'm one of your hosts, Kat Klockow, and I'm joined tonight by Christina Wald, our Lady in the Shadows, and artist Rodney Fyke. Now, first, I want to talk a little bit about our location that we are talking about tonight with our Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities comics anthology. This is one of the locations highlighted in it. You may have heard of it before. It is called the Loveland Castle in Loveland, Ohio. So here's a little bit of history about the location before we get into our interview with Rodney. It is known as Chateau La Roche, also known as the Loveland Castle, which started construction in 1929 as the brainchild of Henry D. Andrews. Andrews, or Sir Harry as he likes to be called, was a World War I veteran who fell in love with castles while fighting in Europe, so that when he returned home to Ohio, he decided to build the Loveland Castle for the Boy Scout troop he led. Every brick was handmade by cement and milk cartons, and with 50 years of work culminating in not only a castle, but a moat, a drainage system. Sir Harry passed away in 1981 after an accident at the castle and willed the property to his Boy Scout troop, the Knights of the Golden Trail, or KOGT. Since then, KOGT has maintained and kept renovating the old castle, and it's open for tours and special events. In fact, Christina and I were there in March before the lockdown happened in Ohio. Of course, the Loveland Castle has its tales of ghosts, which have been shared around the campfire for decades. There is a lady in white who has been witnessed walking around the grounds of the castle, along the riverbank, and has been seen sitting in the courtyard. Sir Harry is said to have never left his beloved castle and has been seen walking around the property. He has been known to slam doors open and shut before bad luck befalls the property. The Viking is another resident spirit of the castle. He is believed to be tied to the sword collection at the castle. The Viking has been described to be an imposing ghost wearing a cloak and carrying a large sword around his chest. And of course, the Loveland Castle is not too far away from another fun cryptid and resident of Ohio, the Loveland Frogman. But for now, we're talking about the castle, who comic book artist and writer Rodney Fyke shares in his thrilling interpretation of the Loveland Castle in his entry for the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities. Welcome to the show, Rodney Fyke.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
How you doing? I'm happy to have you. Christina is also happy to have you. I'm sure she's nodding in the shadows. Somewhere. So, why did you choose the Loveland Castle to write about and illustrate for the anthology?
Well, because a couple of reasons. One, my mother has a friend that is one of the Knights of the Round Table.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So I've been there several times, and we actually had our college graduation ceremony at the castle.
Oh, wow.
Yes. In 1989, we had our ceremony there. So I was very familiar with the castle and the lore and stuff like that. So it just seemed natural to me to choose that one from the list of ones that we had come up with. And it's castles. What guy doesn't like to draw castles?
I know, right? It's so fun to draw.
Yeah, and just the history of it, and I thought I knew some of the history, but digging into it and learning, the ins and outs of Harry's supposed death in World War I from the scarlet fever,
Meningitis.
Meningitis, yeah, influenza meningitis, yeah. And that whole story, just that part of that story is what sparked my story. So, yeah.
Yeah, because you have an interesting take to it, because it's not a straightforward explanation of the history or the ghosts of Loveland Castle. You take us through this almost time warp of the castle's history.
Yes.
So what inspired you to write it the way that you did?
I like to look at historic sites through the scope of an observer of history in the grander scope of time. And I just thought it would be interesting to tell it from Harry's ghost's perspective. And then there was a poem. I didn't bring any of the stuff with me, but it's called, the poem's called,
Is that a ghost? Or was that
nah,
Tina?
yeah, that's Tina. It's called the Simpler Life or something to that effect. And if you ever watch the Tudors series on Showtime, one of the gentlemen, he quotes this poem in the tavern, and it's very it's called The Quiet Mind. I think that's what it's called, and it just talks about appreciating the things that you have in life, and strive to have a quiet mind at night when you lay your head down to sleep. Despite everything that's going on, and be mindful of what you have and who you have in your life and stuff like that. And I just kind of started wrapping my head around that with Harry and all the things that he went through, to wind up in Loveland, Ohio, on the riverbanks with a bunch of Boy Scouts and deciding to build a castle out of the rocks on the riverbed because the rains kept tearing down their tents. So he said, I'm going to build tents that can't be washed away.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yeah. And it's withheld like the test of time, because I know the Little Miami, which it's on the banks of, isn't it?
Yes.
Has flooded a few times.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah. And it's still there.
Oh yeah. And
Dungeon and all.
Dungeon and all. Yeah, they keep expanding and renovating and everything all the time. So it's constantly in motion.
Oh yeah. And Christina and I visited just this year, and it's looking great. They've done so much renovation work compared to the last time I was there, which was 2011.
Yeah.
So did you visit the castle recently?
Yeah, I think I went, I don't remember when it was, probably a month or so after Christina and you went. I was able to swing out there on a day and take some pictures and stuff from camera angles that I wanted for my story.
Right.
So I was able to swing out there and do that, and I went through it all again because it had been quite a few years since I'd been out there, and refreshed my memory and saw some of the new stuff that they've done, and
yeah,
it was nice.
Yeah. Now, when you were creating your pages, are they hand drawn or are they digitally drawn?
They're hand drawn.
Wow.
All organic.
Nice.
Yes.
I tip my hat to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they were a lot of fun. I used a lot of dry brush technique.
Yeah.
For some of the texture in the castle, the panned out shot. Yeah, and that turned out very nice.
Yeah. I think my favorite shot of your piece is the dome that you did with all the brickwork.
Yes.
And that just always catches my eye when I read through the pages.
Yeah, and it was funny because that image of the dome from inside has always resonated with me. And when I was doing my research for the story, I was and that's kind of how I like when you go from the morgue on page 1 to the dome and the light, the little window at the top, it's kind of where he's coming into the castle. So I don't know if people will pick up on that. Can't remember if I
picked up on it pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're okay.
Okay, good.
If I didn't understand what was happening, I would have said something.
But yeah, it's I love all that detail, that high the brick and the stone and stuff like that. So it was right in my wheelhouse. I was having fun.
Now, you mentioned that you had been there before. Have you seen anything spooky there?
Maybe, but I didn't at the time. I didn't know that it was haunted.
Right.
So that would explain some of the occurrences that happened. Just, noises and things falling in other rooms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I've actually seen anything.
Right.
But I've heard stuff.
Yeah. And hearing stuff is reported a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Sir Harry, I did a little bit of ghost research about this in preparing for tonight. And apparently the most reported occurrence is just strange knockings from the walls, the ceiling, and the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the place, it's just, there is no place in the walls for any mice or rats to get up because it's stonework.
Yeah.
Where are they going to go? But people will hear tapping on the stonework on the second floor.
Yeah.
And I don't think there are windows, but there are also a lot of open windows that you could just peer out of. And if there was like a raccoon scaling the wall, you would very easily be able to see it. So,
yeah. There was always seemed to be little things, and tick, 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 stuff like that going on that at the time I wasn't consciously aware of. I just wrote it off as background noise. Somebody else was in the other room with this or that and the other. And then later on, a group of us would be talking about it and come to find out that it was supposedly haunted. And I was like, oh, well, that explains a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I get it now.
Well, there's so
weren't
many
the only
artifacts.
ones there.
Yeah. Probably. There's so many artifacts that they keep in the building now, and all those swords, and that's where the Viking ghost has been spotted, and he seems to be tied to those swords. And I think it's the first floor. It's now next to the gift shop. They have a chessboard, and the chess pieces have been known to move around at night on their own.
Yes. Oh yeah. I was going to say something about that. The sword room. I can't remember now. Okay. I'll think about it when I'm not trying to think about it.
Well, I know when you walk into the building, you can see the entire history of Loveland Castle. They have posted photos of not just Sir Harry, but also all the Boy Scouts who have visited, and Girl Scouts, and weddings and other events that have occurred on the castle's grounds.
Yes.
So it's really neat to see this breadth of history that this castle has had and the impact that it's had. I know, as somebody who has not grown up in Cincinnati, when I moved here, Loveland Castle was one of the first places recommended to visit for me. They're just like, it's so cool. It's just a castle. It's in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. Why? It's so cool. So,
another cool thing about that main room is, you said they've got knickknacks and stuff from all over the place. Is people would send him rocks and stuff from all over the world. So he took those things that people sent him and he cemented them into the wall. So they're there for good.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that's in the sword room.
Yeah. So, if there's any transference of energies or spirits with those things, they're there to stay.
Yeah, that could be. I think they even have like a little piece of meteorite somewhere on the wall. I thought I saw that. Yeah.
There's shells and rocks and all kinds of stuff.
That's really neat. So it's a neat building. I encourage people to go visit and donate to the Knights of the Golden Trail when you do.
Yeah, it's and I would recommend going in the spring or in summer when everything's in full bloom. Just visually, it's just more stunning. Or in the fall when all the leaves are changing.
Yeah, then it just looks super creepy.
Yeah.
Which is my jam, but not everyone's. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it is built like a Norman castle, so the stairs in it are very short and kind of steep. So wear good walking shoes when you visit.
It's actually a replica of the castle that he was stationed in France.
Oh, neat.
Chateau La Roche. I think they said it's a 1/16 scale copy of the castle that because he was a nurse in World War I. And can I recap a little bit of why he was?
Oh, go right ahead.
he rescued on the battlefield a French soldier who was part of a royal was from royalty, and the father of the soldier was so thankful that he had rescued his son that he knighted him.
Oh wow!
So he is actually a true knight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how he got his knighthood.
Yeah, and he really was Sir Harry.
Yes, he earned it on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's there's a lot of interesting things that if you know about it before you go visit, it just makes the experience so much richer.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't advertise that he was in the morgue because they thought he was dead, and when they went to cut on him for the autopsy, he started bleeding, and the doctor said dead men don't bleed.
Nope.
So it just so happened, well, they got this new thing now called adrenaline. Let's shoot it into his heart and see what happens. So
Yeah.
I mean, all that stuff is just, you can't come up with a better script, and it's all true.
Mm-hmm.
It's all factual.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was having a whole lot of fun writing that.
Yeah. And you could tell, because the artwork, you can tell you had fun working on it and writing it.
Well,
I think the energy comes through on the page really well.
Cool. I did my job.
And your penmanship is awesome. I'm a big line art nerd, so I really like seeing the different techniques that you use.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's I had the crow quill out and the brush and the pens and just everything you can think of, just to try to get a bunch of different textures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing I didn't use is the toothbrush and splatter.
It would have added more depth to it. But
yeah. But I was worried that it was starting to get too busy, so I just kind of, all right, enough's enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How long did each page take you to do?
Oh wow, too long. I would say probably 2 full days on each page.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And do you have a favorite page or panel that you worked on?
I would have to say it's either the dome
Mm-hmm.
or the shot of the castle, the panned out shot of the castle, because I was happy with myself the way I was able to get the brick look with the dry brush effect.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're glancing at that, because I had them hanging up on my string in my studio for a long time. If you just glanced up at it, it looked like a photograph.
Ooh, yes.
Like, ooh, sweet. I did that. But yeah, it's those 2 panels are my two favorites of the book.
And they're very striking, so I can see why they're your favorites.
Thank
and
you.
I'm glad that you got so much joy out of completing like the castle.
Oh yeah, it was fun. It was so funny because when we were sitting there at the table and we were throwing out all these names, that hadn't even been thrown out yet, but I knew that I was doing that story. I'm doing a Loveland Castle.
And you did a great job on it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now I have one last question. So where you grew up, do you have just a local hometown haunt or creepy creature?
I do have a hometown haunt. I had a friend of mine. Her house was one of the houses that was on a piece of property that was part of an old peach grove. Oh. And her house was on the one road that existed back when this peach grove and the family that lived in this house was there. So it was on the top. It was at the apex of a hill of the road. So it overlooked the peach grove. And she always would talk about the redheaded boy. And she talked about him all the time. And you would see him running down the road and holding a strap of books, like the kids would carry. Remember when the kids would carry their books in straps back in the olden days?
Yeah.
Way back. And I thought she was nuts. And then one day I was driving over to her house, and I seen this little kid running towards me as I was driving down the road, and I'm like, what the hell's he doing? I hope he gets out of the road. And I stopped, and he turned into the driveway, and he ran down the side of the house, and he went around the back of the house. And I went inside, and I said, Leslie, I think I saw your redheaded kid. And she's like, he's a trip, isn't he? I was like, no, he's real, because I saw him. And,
wow.
and we would see him all the time. And then we would be downstairs. There was a bedroom down there that her brother built when he was in his teens. And he just put up these slats of wood. So there were cracks in between the woods. But we'd be in the bedroom, and we'd be roughhousing. And you would always hear footsteps on the stairs going up and down down into the basement. Heard them constantly. So we were there, and we heard the footsteps, and she's like, watch this. So she reached up, and there was a one light bulb, and it had a string on it. She reached up, she pulled it, and turned the light off. So the boards were backlit because the rest of the basement had the lights on. We were in that bedroom with the light off. There was 4 of us in there, and you could see the silhouetted figure walking past the cracked, in between the cracks of the planks of wood.
Right.
And it just walked one way, turned around and walked back.
Wow.
And it just telling the story, the blood in my blood is turning to ice in my veins just telling the story.
You're getting the goosebumps
I'm getting
on your
goosebumps,
arms.
yeah. Because it's there was a this house was just a treasure trove of we used to go to her house and watch David Letterman. Because her dad was a celebrity impersonator, so he was never home. Okay. And her mother had passed of cancer 6 or 7 years prior. This is before I knew her. So she spent a lot of time at home alone. She was the youngest kid, so her brothers and sisters had moved out. And we would go over to her house and watch David Letterman. And we'd be sitting there, and I would hear plink, 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 plink. And I'd look at her and go, what the hell's that? She'd just start laughing. She goes, they don't like the Dixie cups stacked up on the countertop. I'm like, what? And walked into the kitchen, and she would take remember Dixie cups? Yes. Okay. Well, if you stacked them in a stack on the countertop, they would always blow off. I mean, individually, they would pop up and fall on the floor. And she told that story before, but I'd never witnessed it. But yeah, that happened that night. You could hear them falling on the floor, and walked in there, and they were all over the floor. That happened several times. Wow. Yeah. And the TV would turn channels by itself. Oh. Before remote controls. Remember, there were only 4 channels. That would turn channels. You have to use the knob. Yeah. Yeah. So that was fun. Apparently, they didn't like Letterman. They would switch over to Johnny Carson. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it was just constantly stuff like that. She had a mirror in the bedroom at the end of the hall, which this totally freaked me out. Those are always freaky. And there was a lady with her hair pulled back in a bun, the old 18th century look, had a brooch. Yeah. That she wore, and she would just look at you. Mm. And I wouldn't look at the mirror. Mm. Just would not look at the mirror. It scared me to death. None of the other stuff was just kind of funny. Yeah. But for some reason, that just unnerved me. Having experienced something similar, I totally get it. It's turned you off from looking at mirrors for a really long time when there's something else staring at you from it. Yeah. Yes. I get it. Yep. Well, wow, that is a very haunted place. Is it still standing? Oh yeah, it's still there. Her sister, her older sister, bought the house and moved back in. Wow. Yes. So they were just fascinated by their spectral resident than scared of him. I think they weren't malicious ghosts. They were always very friendly. and they were just used to it. They grew up with it, so
Yeah.
it wasn't anything that they were worried about.
It was part of the family.
Yeah. I mean, Danita moved back in with her 3 children, so she wasn't worried about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a really good story. Thank you for sharing that.
No doubt.
And thank you
Very
for
well.
joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yay!
Yay! So everyone, this is Rodney Fyke. He is a local artist in the Cincinnati area. His work is the Loveland Castle, part of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities. You can also find us on social media. Let me pull that up real quick. You can find us at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram and at Twitter, and we also have a Facebook group. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.